Jackie, you can go. Galan, Simab, and Jamar. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday and Jummah Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. This is Dr. Qureshi here live from Umeed Center for Healing Relationships in Towson, Maryland. And today is an amazing day. Of course, it's the end of the week for some of us because it's Friday. Not me, though, because I'd still come in tomorrow, but I choose to do that, which is okay. But it's a wonderful week because we have an amazing panel of colleagues, friends, professionals that are here that have devoted an hour of their valuable time to be here to talk about one of the most important yet also understudied community, which is our men. So in honoring May as Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought it was very important that we highlight the needs of our men out here. Why? Because they are struggling. The struggle is real. There's so many dynamics, so many things that go into men's wellness, men's health that get overlooked because of many different variables, right? So today we are here to talk about that. We have an amazing panel that's going to talk about their personal experiences but also their professional experiences, and I'm really hoping we can disseminate this information and you guys can share it with your loved ones and anybody else that may need it so that we can encourage everyone to live healthy lives, right? So with that, let's get started. I don't think I need an introduction. You guys know I'm a family therapist at heart. It's all about healing one individual, one family, one community at a time. And here we are. Let's get started with our dear friend, Jackie. Welcome, Jackie.
Hello, thank you for having me, but most importantly, thank you for talking about this. You're right, not enough people talk about it. So I appreciate you inviting me for this because I am not a man. Look at that. However, I have grown up in a household where my dad had extreme mental health illness, and I did not realize that. He served in the Vietnam War and had intense PTSD that I just thought was normal behavior. And I knew that I wanted to go into the world of helping people not be sad. So kids weren't sad at home like I had a lot of sad and stressed times at the house. So I went into become a social worker thinking I was just going to work in the schools with little tiny kids and make them happy. That was my goal. And then my boss said, guess what? You need to start working with people that have committed crimes. And so I got switched over into the world of restorative justice and re-entry, working with people that have committed crimes, both as young people and those that are in the prison systems, jails, or when they get out. So I've spent about 22 years of my life working with men in all capacities. I do not diagnose the men that I work with, but we honor and we refer and we acknowledge what's going on with them because it is so different than everybody else. So by day, I run a nonprofit that specifically works with reducing crime and conflict. We work with victims of crime, but primarily we work with those that are offending and try to help them get a different mindset so they can make different decisions in the community. I also, by fun, I do travel. Travel is my mental health break. That is my type of therapy. I have been fortunate to go to all 50 states, and I have done 26 of them all by myself. We learned, thank you.
That's cool.
We learn stuff when we're alone, guys, and too many times when we're alone, our brain talks naughty to us, and it gets us sad and angry. And about 4 years ago, I decided I wasn't going to listen to that myself, and I wasn't going to tell have people tell me that I couldn't go places without a man or without other people. And I decided that that was what I wanted to do. So I try to spread that hope. So I do have a little side business that tries to encourage, especially women, to go on their own, or anybody that feels unsafe traveling alone. I try to work with them on the side. And then I also do a reentry consultation. And Dr. Q and I have known each other through a variety of places, especially through LinkedIn, and doing different events and mental awareness activities, and really trying to get people to take care of themselves. So I'm so glad to be here. If you want to learn more about me, if we have not been connected, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I do a show every Monday at 9 o'clock that focuses on all my passions: reentry, travel, mental wellness, and hyping other humans. Because once we do that, it gets to be a lot better place. So Dr. Q, you mentioned something as you were introducing about we don't talk about mental health. And if we talked about that mental health, especially men's mental health, what a more peaceful world we would all have. So thank you for talking about this topic. I'm so glad to be here with the rest of everybody.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Galan?
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Qureshi, again for inviting me to this amazing panel, and what an important discussion to have. Not only from the perspective of, just South Asians, but just men in general, right? It doesn't matter where you're from. It's just been very challenging. And as clinicians, as advocates, like I didn't realize Jackie's work and reentry stuff, because I'm very close to doing that. I do that as well with public defense work, and I've been doing it for 10 plus years. And seen so many men and young men go through the justice system and have had to deal it on their own without having to share the burden with anyone else can only be so challenging. And so I'm so grateful for this opportunity to just discuss, share, and create a space to normalize the multi layers of what goes through someone when they have to carry it all, or they have to make it seem like they just have to make sure that they are the strongest one in the household or in the communities. And that layer of complexity, due to societal expectations, traditional norms, and just our rooted cultures and pressures, just makes this work so much more important. And you may have known, and so from my own experience, I was born and raised in Pakistan, moved to the States in 2007, and I've experienced and I have witnessed, not only in my family, but in my community, in my society, I'm a Zoroastrian, how much of mental health awareness there needs to be more, even though, and it doesn't matter how educated you are. I've come to know that the education doesn't equal to mental health awareness. And so what's important is to be able to share, talk, digest without pointing fingers, without making fun. And the messages that we've got since childhood, right? That has been so, what may have looked as positive, as helpful, now comes, when you look back at it, it just shows that was equally damaging because of how it was brought to us and how it was said to us. So I'm so excited to see what we share today and how it's all going to come to play. But and that's all I have for myself. So thank you.
Thank you, Galan. And Galan, you are in Texas.
That is correct. Currently, I reside in Houston, Texas, and work for Harris County, and I'm a therapist and all of that. Beyond county. And yes, I have a law degree, I have a social work degree, and I'm currently pursuing my MBA. And I'm just excited to do anything I can to help everyone in this space, because it's just such important work. And so thank you all for all you all do.
Thank you, Galan, for being here. I am so eager to hear what everyone has to contribute. We all have these expertise, we have all this knowledge, and the virtual world has allowed us to really disseminate information in a way that seemed impossible. And I mean, yes, COVID, a horrific pandemic. Yet with that, there came a few things that I think we can say has advanced technology too. And I'm so happy to know that we're actually using these platforms. Each and every one of us is in a different state, basically, so different areas. So we didn't have to be here at Umeed Center to be able to do this. So thank you so much. Jamar.
Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
It's
You,
definitely
you
hard.
got your podcast ready and everything. You're
Right.
testing it out.
I do a lot of other stuff on the side. I just wanted to say peace and blessings to the family here. First, thank, just everyone, this esteemed panel, just all this elite minds here coming from different backgrounds, a whole hodgepodge of different experiences. I'm just honored to be here and I appreciate that. And I want to give a special thanks and bottomless gratitude to Dr. Q for allowing me to be on this panel. Just get me out here and I look forward to learning something here as well as giving something here. And hopefully the audience gets the same. A little bit about me. I forgot about me. I'm Jamar. I'm from Baltimore. I'm currently live in Oregon right now. I'm a travel social worker, but I put freedom fighter as my first label, similar to Harriet Tubman, similar to Ida B. Wells, similar to all your pioneers in Black history. I think they were freedom fighters before they were nurses, before they were lawyers, before they were doctors. So that is my very first title before anything else. A little bit about my background. I started in foster care. I'm a social worker with lived experience. I've been in almost every institution, almost every hood, like a good mechanic. Just real colloquial experience. I try not to go too high on a mountaintop and stay as far in the valley as I can to reach most of the audience. I believe you have to connect before you correct. So usually I'm not speaking a lot of social work nomenclature or therapist jargon to try to fly over some of my people's heads. I usually try to connect with people where they are. Personal background comes from grassroots history. I was a part of many different grassroots organizations. First, the UNIACL, which is a Marcus Garvey movement. I've done some work around Ban the Box, which is for those that have been incarcerated, having to, write in the box that you've been arrested before. I did have a legal background too as well. It just been a part of many different grassroots organization. And then I moved into community organization. I worked in the Freddie Gray community in Baltimore, where there was a lot of trauma. Did foster care and independent living, almost got burnt out there. And did adult protective services before. Just an eclectic experience. I worked at Yale, licensed in Connecticut, licensed in Maryland, soon to be Oregon and Wisconsin. Just here to just collect this good information. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And as I'm listening to you guys, oh my God, all of you guys have some connection with law, right? Like some experience. And it brings me back to my major. One of my majors in undergrad was criminology and criminal justice. And guess why? Because I was pre-med and I was contemplating whether go to med school or law school, because those are the only two things, and maybe engineering, that you can really do as an immigrant in this country, right? So I was like, okay, well, I have two options. Yet neither of them happened because I decided to go pursue my degree in family studies. So I didn't end up going to med school. I ended up going to graduate school. Yet I often have people tell me like, hey, you are a great advocate. You should be a lawyer because you're going to win a lot of cases. So yeah, I mean, it takes a certain skill set, right, to have a voice and to be able to help other people find their voice. And each and every one of us is doing that. So with that, Simab, take us home. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're mute. Simab, you're mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Hi, guys. I'm Samab. Pleasure to meet you, Jelani, Jamar, and Jackie. I'll be completely honest. This is probably one of my first live LinkedIns that I actually attended. I mean, I always go to Dr. Q's and I'm always as a viewer, so I'm not connected to law. My story is completely different. And I just want to thank Dr. Q for giving us the opportunity to come together. And, they say everyone has a story. And of course, I have a story too. And one thing I want to say is people don't really realize how serious, mental health is, along with, depression and things like that sort of nature. I myself, I like to help others too. I see that, everybody that's on this panel is about helping one another and being just, in a society where you want to potentially change the world, because I definitely, if I could, I definitely would. So as far as my background goes, I was born in Pakistan, initially migrated here when I was like 2, pretty much grew up in this, in Baltimore. That's where we call home, where Jamar is. But I'm actually physically in Virginia. Decided to kind of migrate a little south. And, I myself, I've really realized, because growing up, I didn't even know mental health I didn't even think mental health even honestly existed. I didn't know. I didn't really, in today's society, people don't really realize how serious it can potentially be. But as far as, I grew up in the States, and pretty much, born, breathe, came here when I was like 2 years old. And I myself, I'm actually in the towing industry. I like to help others too. Like, I basically, I'm the person that comes out and helps you when your car breaks down, if you call AAA, or if you call Geico or your roadside assistant. So I'm there. I like to help people as well. And I myself I'm in recovery, to be honest with you. And it's been about, a year, 2 years. No, actually 2 years, I would say, almost a year and a half. And I have the confidence now to talk about it, because in the beginning, I felt very uncomfortable and always thought, well, what would people think about me? So that's a little bit about me. And again, this is great, and I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you so much, Samab, for being vulnerable here. It takes a lot of courage to be able to say, hey, I am in recovery, or I am struggling with this. And it's, recovery in any area is a lifelong journey, right? And it's also important for us to understand how we get where we get, right?
Right.
How do we end up in the places that we end up? How do we develop maladaptive behaviors, destructive behaviors? How did we, what impacts us in terms of the traumas that we've experienced that ultimately, what's the word? That ultimately is the trauma that you have experienced then becomes or mimics its symptoms as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and even addiction, right? The list can go on and on. And I think some of the things that you guys mentioned here that I want to open up the floor and talk a little bit more about is let's talk about the cultural barriers around addressing and understanding mental health, especially men's mental health. And we can even go back to boys' mental health, right? What are some of the barriers that we are seeing or that have existed in communities, but also maybe specifically your own community? And you can also speak from your professional experience too. What are the barriers that you've seen with your clinical work, with the families, with the men, that impede on people actually seeking treatment?
So, well, if I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but if I would say, we come from a Middle Eastern, I come from a Middle Eastern background, and I know over there, it's a little, in that Middle Eastern culture and background, it's hard for people to speak up, because it always seems as if if something's that's really not wrong, they still sometimes they shun it, and sometimes as you're growing up, you tend to kind of realize, I can't even share that, hey, I did this, or I'm thinking like this, because people are always just being judgmental about the situation. And I feel as if it tends to happen in more of, our culture, or out in the, maybe Middle East or something like that, when over here, like living, in America, it's like, freedom of speech, and that's something that over there, they might feel as if, I'm growing up in a household, and, every household has a different structure, and I feel as if every household has a different way of, raising kids if it's a family, obviously. And, and when it comes to religion and things like that, there's a Christianity home, there's a, Islamic home, and I feel as if in the Middle Eastern culture, when it comes to that, there's just so many restrictions that apply on these individuals where they're actually growing up and they really think that it's not okay to talk about it or ask somebody about it. So just, a little my 2 cents on something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a two.
Oh, go ahead.
Go.
Go ahead, Galan.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that because he's talking about, raising in Middle Eastern families and coming from South Asia and all that. I think what I've seen, whether it's through work that I've done with clients or just experience through what I've personally seen, is that once you do recognize that there's something wrong, most people don't have the language to say what it is because we don't have access to that education. We don't have access to, like, in our households, like, everybody would share a computer. So exactly what somebody is researching, the history, there's no privacy. People don't have individual rooms. Not everybody can afford to have rooms. And this is not just my family, I'm talking about just in general. And I just want to say that because, there is people with privilege and all. And, even in my household where we had certain privileges, there's no, like, this lack of privacy. And that creates very hard to do self-research, to understand where to go with what you're doing. And then number 2 is once you do realize that there's something wrong, it's hard to advocate for yourself because first, we don't even know if there's treatment for it. But let alone that, usually it's masked with your grandfather went through so much hardship and look how they came about, or your father went through so much hardship and we just have to be stronger to just get through the day, right? And these are things that are just, or if they do understand you, I've seen that person then is shunned, kind of like, oh, don't talk to them about these things. You know how they overreact. They're so emotional. They get emotional. So it's like even the support comes across as you're going to be like siloed out from situations and it's not treated as an adult, which makes it very hard for many generations to come out. And this is not even talking about identity issues. This is just general anxiety, stress, PTSD. We are not even going into the multiple layers of other things. And I think that kind of tag that we have, like you are weak or you are different or you cannot be spoken to as an adult because you won't be able to handle it, becomes very difficult and quite annoying for many people who want to talk about this, and especially when you don't have the language for it. Not everybody knows bipolar, let alone in Pakistan. Over here, it's so difficult to diagnose people because there's so many similar symptomologies to other diagnoses, and we tend to, how our insurance system works. We want to run towards diagnosis, which is the opposite of what we really want to do in practice. But so let alone country in that, and that's been very challenging, even for first migrants or second generation migrants, and then the intergenerational trauma that we have just learned to adopt and adapt to and made it like part of our norms. And this is what we are, this is who we are. And then we tag that with culture and customs, which makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
I appreciate those words too. There's some similar cultural issues. I have a 2-part answer to that. As far as Black men Black people generally, we have a different way we retain and intake information and education. I believe it was Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad that said that education is a 2-part: information and inspiration, meaning that we have to be 100% serious about the information that we disseminate. So when I'm in therapy, I'm talking about information and I'm 100% accurate and serious. But also, since Black people in general are people of rhythm and vibes, you have to disseminate it in a more rhythmic way. You have to pass the vibe check. So therefore, we're inspirational people. And I think when we do treatment approaches to Black men in general, you have to do it from an information standpoint and an inspirational standpoint. That's generally. Specifically for Black men, there's this societal standard that is often geared towards societal norms, that is often like conveyed as a beneficiary to society. And what that looks like is these are like dehumanizing stereotypes that are often placed on Black men before they are, before they sit in front of your chair. These are good to know. Certain stereotypes, I believe Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, he's out of Fresno University, who teaches Black male studies in California. He talks about being human doing, being a workhorse, being a sperm donor, being a child disciplinary proxy, being a unpaid henchman, a valueless assassin, or these social stereotypes that we try to gear away from. I'm here to say, Black man, or anybody that's a Black man out there, you're an innovator, you're a inventor, you're a thinker, you're a leader, and you don't fit into any societal norms or stereotypes or biases that anybody has for you.
Oh, that's
Thank
huge.
you, Jamar.
That's
That-
huge. Dr. Q, I think you got 3 amazing humans here that not only can walk the walk, but they're willing to share about this stuff that so many times people don't want to talk about. The only thing I want to jump in before I turn it back to you, because I know you got great stuff to follow up with these guys, is I don't know one culture where men are not told to stop acting like a girl, toughen up if they show their emotions, if they start crying, if they feel sensitive. And that's got to change, whether it's because of the immediate family, whether it's the friends, whether it's the older siblings, whether it's the school teachers. Guys, we've got to stop that. I mean, men and women are both born with tear ducts. There's a reason we cry. There's a reason we have a brain and all these great different responses, and we're pushing that down. And when little boys aren't able to express that, they become toxic, because where else does it go? And then when they hear these generalized stereotypes, when they realize about the intergenerational trauma, when they've had doors slammed in their face, and when they've had people lock their doors in front of them or act like there's somebody scarier than somebody else, that is something that, how would they know how to go talk to somebody? How would they know to talk to a therapist if this is how they're being treated from day one almost? And so thank you guys for being willing to be on a show even that says mental health. Now, I want to challenge people that are listening, or people that have thought about this. When we say the word healthy, we're like, yay, you just got healthy. Look at you, you're running, you're so healthy, you're eating healthy. That's a great thing. But when we say mental health, why is that such a stigma? Why isn't it a positive thing to say, I'm working on my mental health right now. I am taking care of my son who has mental health concerns, and look at us working on them. Why can't we elevate that like we do when people are trying to lose weight, or they're trying to, look younger or be stronger or something like that? So thank you guys, all of you guys. This is such an important topic, and we need to keep this going way past Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah, Jackie, thank you for highlighting the phenomenal panelists that we have here, right? And usually in our panels, I think the last one I was a part of, it was all women. And we're like, where's the men in here to see that we have more men here versus women? This is great, right? And we need more men like this that are out there advocating not only for themselves, but helping advocate for those that don't have a voice either. And each and every single thing that you guys have said is just so powerful. And I'm trying to figure out, where do I want to start and how do I want to zoom it all in? Because each one of these can be a panel discussion in itself, right? And in kind of integrating all of this together, right? What I really hear is the lived experiences of us as humans, right? Whether we're talking about race, gender, class, religion, right? Those are all social variables. Those are all social constructs that impact us in ways that impact our wellness, right? So we are bounded by social norms that have been developed in this society that are hard to break. So one of the first ones that we talked about was being seen as weak when men show emotions, right? Think about all the patriarchal messages we get, right? Think about, I mean, and even in my own personal family, in my own, my own background, like unfortunately, we've had some losses in the community that I grew up in, where, my friends' parents have passed away. Of course, those that know me, my parents passed away back to back as well, right? Like I did not see my dad cry when his sisters passed away. I did not see the brothers of my friend cry when their mom recently died. I don't even think I saw my brothers cry as much as I did, or just overall. It was almost as if we got to keep going, we got to keep going, we got to keep going. Like not taking the time out to honor our emotions, right? And part of that is attached to, hey, if you start crying and you actually deal with these emotions, you're not going to be able to get up. And if you can't get up, you can't provide and you can't protect. And you can't perform. Let's not forget performance.
You know,
So where does that leave you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Where
no.
does that leave you? That leaves you detached. That leaves you emotionally, I don't know again what the right word is, like that just leaves you vulnerable in a lot of different ways. And in addition to that, when you bottle in your emotion, what do you get? You get anger, rage, resentment, and explosion, right? So if we're looking at gender dynamics, right, what do we see more of? Even when you're a kid, right? When you have kids coming in for mental health issues, boys versus girls, you see a lot more external diagnosis, external symptoms in boys and internal symptoms in girls. Why? Because of socialization. And then when you get in adult relationships, women are longing to be emotionally connected with their spouses, but their spouses can only minimally, have emotional intelligence to recognize an emotion that's other than anger. And then what happens? You have kids. Your kids see those. So one of the things that is vital here is teaching our boys the same language that we teach our girls, the same language of sensitivity, vulnerability, emotional self-expression. So Simab, I'm sorry, what did you want to add to that?
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll jump in real quick
Go
because
ahead.
you talked about that girl thing. Let's think about it. We want healthy relationships as teenagers, young adults, people that want to be in a partnership with somebody. When we have young boys not able to express themselves in any way other than hurting somebody, we are teaching our girls it's okay because they're still cute or they're giving you attention, but they're also being physically violent and they don't use their words. How do we expect healthy relationships to develop that way? So it's like, you're not just helping boys when you tell them that it's okay to be emotional and it's okay to express themselves and use their words. You're helping future generations figure out how to talk and communicate as humans as they age together. And so when people think it's like being soft, by boys are being soft if they use their words or show emotion, you guys are literally causing so much harm. It drives me insane when I hear families that are just like, oh, he just needs to stop it right now. I'm going to go show him what he needs to do. If he's going to start crying, I'll give him something to cry about. And it's like, really? You're going to model that behavior, and that's what somebody is going to end up marrying or having babies with, and that next generation is going to think that's okay too.
Yeah. That reminds me of an example of like when you're a little girl and a boy pushes you or does something, the response is, he just likes you. Well, that's a great way to show me you like me by pushing me. Okay. And what does that translate to when you end up in abusive relationships? Oh, he really likes me. He's jealous, right? If he's jealous and controlling, oh, he really loves me. Those are the messaging we're getting from a really young age.
I
Go
tend to
ahead.
tell people that communication is key, just like Jackie was talking. When she had talked about communication and being able to talk about it. That's very true, because I feel as if there's always a solution to everything. But sometimes people don't have it in them to be like, okay, let's talk about it. I've seen individuals where they might run away from the problem. So I like to tell people that, you know, in order to come to a solution, you need to be able to talk about it. And even again, back to mental health, people don't like to talk about it. And, you know, you should be able to talk about it and express your emotions, because we are men, and, you know, we have a heart, and, you know, we have emotions, and, you know, we feel some type of way too about the situation. So it's okay, just because, you know, you are a man and you feel like, you know, you're supposed to be, you know, some people think that they should be dominant. I mean, they're a man, but that's not necessarily the case. Just because, you know, God's gifted you to be potentially, you know, a man or whatever you practice. It's okay, like being able to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the reason why mental health is important is to help men understand that there is more facets and more gambits of emotions you can express. And I think I had a conversation with Dr. Q in reference to this, that we only have like two emotions. I'm alright and I'm mad, right? So there's a lot in between that we have to express, right? And that comes with a lot of education and connecting and, you know, teaching. That is a skill, to have that insane focus on, hey, I want to express myself a certain way, being able to have that emotional intelligence. So I do agree.
Yeah.
And I just want to add to that, that I think sometimes we become so scientific in our treatment modalities that I think we forget the cultural aspect. And I think that sometimes the Western way of individualism and stand for yourself, and there's strength in sometimes in individualistic mindset may not work for many of my clients who come from South Asia and other regions, where they still want to be accepted by the family, though the family may be harming them in other ways, but they still want to be connected. They find strength in the family, and they don't want to stand against the family. They don't want to make them upset or whatever. And so it's a lot of work has been done with communication, but also equally with boundaries. How do you uphold healthy boundaries that people can respect? Because that's something that's really critical in the journey of healing, especially that I've seen in first and second generational families and clients that I have worked with, which is like they still want to stay intact. They don't want to lose communication. They don't want to, you know, and if they're coming out or something, then it's even much more challenging, because we have to be realistic about the family dynamics and the situation and the country. And coming out in Pakistan will be very different than coming out in America. The protections are going to be very different legally too. So we have to be really aware when we are providing treatment to clients or working through that we understand those lens and those dynamics, because it's not one cookie cutter kind of solution to all these problems when we talk about, especially with men, also women, but just also in households where, and then I think growing up, to break from the trauma, I think it's so important for families now to recognize that as trauma, intergenerational trauma, because I think until we don't recognize it, I don't think we can move forward with it. It's like I'd seen somewhere this saying where, you know, if you have all this old luggage in your hand, where will you have space to hold the new luggage, kind of a thing. And I think that is really true. You need to put some of it back down to hold new stuff in your hands. And I think that's really important. But how do you do that as therapists, as clients, as community holders, by making sure people are still safe? Because safety is paramount to me before anything. And, you know, depending on which country circumstances they are coming from, I think that balance has been really important, but challenging.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw this out there. You know, another key and critical part to, you know, mental health is, again, you know, having a supportive system, you know, supporting individuals of you, you know, I mean, sometimes they say the people that you surround yourself are the people that you know, become. It's not necessarily true, but, you know, it's kind of a saying that's out there.
Yes,
You know,
it is.
So I tend to think, because again, like, you know, I feel as if my life's been a journey too, and I never thought that today I'd be sitting here. I never even thought that I would potentially fall into addiction and it would change my whole life. You know, like I feel like a new me, a complete different individual, but it also had to do with that supportive system. While I was in that 2 or 3 year phase, the people that I was around were doing the things that we shouldn't have been doing. You know what I mean? And then I really realized, well, I really need to change the people I'm around. I need to be around people that are going to support me and push me to go through recovery, because it's It's an actual journey. So I think that, like, as far as a supportive system, like, that's crucial and it's critical to, you know, the mental health part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think community support is a very, very significant protective factor. When we talk about protective factors and risk factors, right? Protective factors keep us safer, right? Those include things like, you know, family and loved ones, relationships that are positive. That includes education, access to information, access to healthcare, right? Access to treatment. There's so many different protective factors. Yet, I think the absence of protective factors also contribute to mental health, right? Our well-being. Period. I'm sure most of us are aware of the adverse childhood experiences, right? The questionnaire and the study that was done. So childhood trauma before the age of 18 really, really shows up as disease later on in life. And Kaiser Permanente did studies on that. People that had experienced trauma before the age of 18, and there's 10 different ones when they first started it. Of course, it has evolved because our understanding of trauma has evolved. But there's 10 particular ones. If you experience them before the age of 18, you're more than likely to have certain medical conditions when you're older. So when we talk about mental health, we need to look at that. Your mental health impacts your physical health, your spiritual health, your intellectual health, your emotional health. Like, you know, there's 9 different dimensions of wellness, right? And I actually have another podcast where we're covering that. But just kind of reiterating, like, we are an entire whole person with different parts, and we have to take care of each part. And when we talk about mental health, that part is psychological, physical, emotional, spiritual, right? It's everything. Your entire mental health impacts all of you, not just parts of you, right? And I also want to say, Galan, you had mentioned the trauma intergenerational stuff. I can't tell you how often in my work I have to distinguish with families. There's a difference between drama and trauma. Drama is okay. Trauma is not.
Right.
Trauma is normalized. So people aren't seeing it. So one of the first things that need to happen is the psychoeducation part, the knowledge. As Jamar said, information, dissemination of information, and standing up and saying, no, that is not okay. That's trauma. That's not drama. I don't want this in my life. That's abuse. Yet the normalization of trauma, it impacts everybody's mental health, specifically when aggression is tied to your manlyhood. Think about the definition of macho. What does that mean? And Simav is like frozen. He's like, oh.
I just noticed
What is
that.
macho? I mean, the concept of machismo in the Hispanic community, right? We know about the concept of machismo. And if you're anything but machismo, you're not a man. So the deconstruction of these social constructs is where we have to start.
And then unfortunately, you guys still here? Okay. Unfortunately, we really do have to destigmatize, or let's just say deconstruct, as Dr. Q said, what masculine means. There's this societal expectation. You have this organizational expectation, institutionalization expectation. Even the family structure has this expectation of masculinity. And it is a big hiccup on why men in general don't have good treatment engagement, is because, hey, there's this certain expectation here. Also systematically, rightfully so, systematically, where mental health has been used against men. There's this repugnance, or I guess this ambivalence towards going towards mental health. If you look at the family courts, if you look at some of the things that go on child welfare, so I can understand the reluctance and the ambivalence for going for mental health. But my thing is that connection piece is really important. That psychoeducation piece, that understanding of trauma and culture, to engage men in mental health and do it from a sense of care. I believe Maya Angelou said that people don't care how much you know; they want to know how much you care. Right? Go with the element of caring about the men that we serve, or care about your fellow brother, care about your fellow husband, because we can feel that. People can feel that. There's another quote. I got a lot of them. There's a difference.
You're like a reference page, Jamar. You didn't give us no heads up.
There's another quote. There's a big difference between a tour guide and a travel agent. One tells you to go places they never been, and the other walks the walk with you along the way. So we have to be tour guides in this space when it comes to service delivery to men.
I was just going to hit on that. As professionals, I don't care if you're a counselor, therapist, recovery coach, doctor, even, teachers, we have to be very aware of our physical and emotional and vocal response when men or boys share their pain. They share the idea that they want help, that they're struggling, that they're not feeling safe in their body, or that they're feeling threatened. We can't just be like, oh, just stop doing that, it'll be fine, or just deal with it a little bit later, or just toughen up, or just hit them first, that'll calm everything down. We, as the professionals, we have an absolute ethical responsibility to get rid of some of our biases on what we thought was male, masculinity, what boys are supposed to be like. Even if I used to be an elementary school counselor for a few years. The things the adults in that school would scream at kids, and these kids were hurting. We were the highest poverty elementary school in my side of the state. We were having kids that literally would hide knives in the bushes on their way home so they felt safer walking back to their house after they left school. This is not okay. We as professionals, as adults, we have to be very mindful of those images that we give and how we decide we're going to use our words, or we are reinforcing all that crap that we keep saying that, oh, just shake out of it. You don't need that. Make sure that you're using your words. But then if we're not letting them use their words, come on. That's why I kind of felt bad being on this panel, because I'm like, we need the men's voices to talk about this. But it's like, sometimes you need to just stop yourself and say, as a woman, I need to make sure that I am not putting men down in any capacity, that I'm making sure that they use that. And I'm just throwing this out there as a single woman. I want a man that talks about emotions. Okay. It is so sexy. I mean, it's like a whole different level. It's like, I don't just want to hear about your bad day at work. I don't want to hear about who cut you off on the highway. I don't want to hear about your fishing trip. I want to hear about, man, this sucks. I heard this person say this. They're hurting. They're grieving. Talking about some of this kind of stuff. That is where your brain just decides it's so connected, and that energy starts vibing. And it's a really beautiful place. And so I am going to put this out there. If you're not in those rooms with people where men are expressing emotions and they're sharing things other than surface level, are you kind of the problem? Are you that problem? Are you not opening that door? Are you not letting them feel comfortable in any capacity? So that's something we all have to check ourselves, guys. We really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I literally have visuals, right? While you guys are talking, I have visuals, and you can just say flashbacks of actual life social situations that I've either seen or have been part of, right? So what I envision as we're having in this moment is like a group of guy friends, right? Let's just say high school or college guys, boys. They're sitting around the table, maybe playing beer pong. I don't know what they're doing, right? Or, one's experiencing some different emotions. I mean, the likelihood of a friend saying, yo, go run it off, go to the gym, go punch a punching bag, right? And it'll get better. You'll be okay. Go ahead, go sweat it off, right? That happens. That happens very often, right? And then on top of that, it's like, if it's not that, when someone does say, especially men, oh, you know what, I'm thinking about seeing a therapist, or I started seeing a therapist, the response is why?
Right.
Instead, the response should be, that's great, that's awesome, can I get their card too? Do they take my insurance? Or at least minimally, that's great, can I help? How can I help? We shouldn't, and this goes with destigmatizing, right? There's so many people that go to therapy secretly, in silence. Go ahead, Simab.
So, this all goes back to traumatizing. Sorry, I got disconnected first. And I had a little bit of a couple of things that I kind of wanted to mention about traumatization. It's an actual thing, like it happens, and a kid can be re-traumatized, meaning just because, and this all relays back to mental health. So what happens is, you can have a kid that's been traumatized growing up, and then, everything's cool for a couple years, and then what happens is he's re-traumatized because of the actions of his parents, or just his surroundings, or whatever he's around. And what happens is it creates a domino effect within the generations, because you have these kids that are growing up, they're traumatized, they're being aggressive, and they're getting older, and now they're having kids, and if that first parent potentially didn't get any help, or even just going and seeing a therapist, their aggressiveness is being shown to their children. And what happens is, that's why it's always important to actually accept, like, hey, it's not a bad thing to be like, hey, I need help, or I want to talk to somebody about if you actually do open up to that, it prevents re-traumatization that could eventually end up, that becomes a domino effect within the generation. Because if the one individual would have went and seeked a little bit of help or whatnot, and speaking to somebody, it would basically stop it from it actually lingering on from generations to generations.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. One parent, right? One parent works on their trauma. Let's say they have 4 kids. That's 4 preventions, like 4 people that you have protected, right? Those 4 kids then duplicate, right? Or they have children, and their children's have children, right? So yes, it is a domino effect, and it starts with you, right? It starts with you taking the initiative of like, hey, I refuse to move this way. I no longer want to continue this because it's not okay. So with that, guys, I mean, this is a lot of great information, right? We've talked about a lot of bullet points, but we only have 7 more minutes left. So I did want to propose and kind of come together with all of this, right? So I wanted to kind of take the last few minutes to talk about possibly one takeaway that you want to give people, right? Especially men out there from different cultural backgrounds, different age groups, religion, you name it, right? What is that one thing that you would want them to know if they're watching this? And you don't repeat answers because there's plenty.
All right. Well, I'm going to say mine first before somebody repeats my answer. I would say, listen, we live in a huge world, right? You're not the only one fighting. Okay. I tend to tell people, as I'm, embarking this new journey in my life, and I'm very happy. At least I like to have positivity around me. I like to say that I'm happy, right? But you're not in it alone, and you're not the only one that's dealing with situations in your life. Some people are dealing with a lot worse situations. Some people are dealing with mentals, I'm sorry, let me take that back. Some people are, dealing with emotional situations. Some people are dealing with financial situations. Some people are, dealing with, losing significant others, So I like to tell people you're not in it alone. And I also like to tell people, God sends all of us to the world for a reason. Everybody has a purpose. And you should continue to chase your dreams. Know that, when you look at a clock, if you notice one thing, like if you look at that clock, time will never move backwards. It's only going to move forward. So whatever's happened in the past, don't let it affect you. Things happen for a reason. And we tend to say we got to stay positive. Things happen. There's always in a situation, there's always an outcome. And whether it's for the good or for the bad, but each chapter eventually closes in your life, and you just have to make sure you stay supportive, stay positive, and know that you're not there's so many people that are fighting with so many problems in the world, and yours might just be, it's like a salt in the haystack or whatever. So
Yeah. Thank you, Samab.
I'll just say one or two things. The one thing I just want to say, that do not suffer in silence. You are not alone. There is strength in vulnerability. And you can set the example straight for your family and for future generations, and break the trauma by holding yourself to that mantle of being okay with not being okay, and sharing that with people, so that you can create that community, the support system, and the help that is needed to move along. And you can show that to your children, sons and daughters, of how to lead a healthy, happy family, and how different families can look, and it's all okay. And at the end of the day, you'll make it through if you have the right people around you who can understand you, you. Because I feel like we can take upon any challenge if we just have the right people on our side to support us. And so that's all I would say. And to those shows and serials, look at them with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of drama on that, and they do publicize a lot of trauma and drama all intertwined. So be careful when you look at that. Don't learn from it. Just be entertained by it, but do not need to learn and adapt and bring that into your household, because that is just for TRP. And especially I'm talking about the serials that we watch in India and Pakistan.
I love that. I'm going to follow up with you too, because you both used the word that I'm going to talk about. Both of you said in just a kind of quick little blip, happy. My big takeaway is you deserve to be just as happy as everybody else, but you got to drop the comparison. Just because your dad did this, or because your friend is getting this, or because they live here, or they have this skin, or they have this kind of bank account, your happiness is just as important. And if that means that you're tense and you're feeling icky and it hurts and you're angry or anxious, that's not letting you be as happy as you deserve. So that's when you reach out to your doctor, your community, your support system. If you go to your pastor and they just tell you to toughen up, if you go to a counselor and they just kind of, okay, no, find somebody new. Keep finding who you need until it works for you, because we might all be great therapists, but we might not be your great therapist. So don't compare. Keep finding who you need, because your happiness is literally going to change your world and everybody around you. So be happy, and don't compare what your happy looks like compared to somebody else. So thank you guys for both using those words. I love that word.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you all for having me on the panel. I have 2 points. Since we're going with the theme of happiness, I'll start with the first one before we talk about happiness. I think that your change adversity, or your change adversary, is keeping you capsized from growth. So those that are out there struggling, embrace change. Change is inevitable. One of the errant convictions is that great change can come with no behavior. So great behavior has to follow change, right? Or come before change. So I think that, a lot of times men, we're kind of stuck in our ways. We're what do you call it? Tunnel vision. We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. But just be open to change, be fluid, be able to pour into, have a growth mindset, and not have a fixed one. That would be my first thing to those men out there struggling. For those practitioners, when we talk about happiness, I remember the golden rule was to do unto others, or what was it? Do unto others, right? Treat people how you want to be treated. I would say get rid of that. You want to the platinum rule. That's what I call the platinum rule. Treat people how they want to be treated, right? Because we want to get off of being you-centered when we practice with folks, and we want to be they-centered, and therefore we have a great collaboration amongst therapeutic alliances and therapeutic relationships. And you don't have to be a therapist to do this. You can practice this in your daily relationships. Try to be face-centered. Try to talk to your soulmate. Try to talk to your friends and be face-centered. And I guarantee you there'll be a lot of cohesiveness in the interaction.
Yeah. Thank you guys. What awesome takeaways. And of course, I'm gonna put mine out there, right? Many. There's so many. Yet I think what I want to leave out there with is finish this off with is invest in yourself mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Your mental health is an investment. If you are not investing in your mental health, you are doing yourself a disservice. You deserve to heal. You deserve to understand that things have happened to you that were not okay. You deserve to have your voice back. You deserve to have advocacy, to stand up for yourself, to be empowered, motivated, to feel confident and good about yourself. You owe it to yourself to be that amazing person that God created and put on this earth. Period. And with that, there's one thing I say to everybody that I come across, and this is for all the lovely people out there. See yourself through other people's eyes. And those eyes are the ones of loved ones. People that love you and adore you, see yourself through their eyes and you'll see what we're looking at. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. Jackie, Galan, Jamar, Sima for being here. We did miss Tiffany, but hopefully we'll get her on at some point. Amazing Friday, guys. Have an awesome weekend. The pools are open. I do have I Choose Me, Parenting in the Trenches coming up. So there's going to be more things coming as well. And link up with all of us. Let's create more joy and let's have some fun while we heal, because that's what we do at Umeed Center. We dance our way to healing. So with that, take care. Allah Hafiz, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.